Okay, we are up in. Hey, Bernadette. Hey, RJW949. Sending you all so much love, everybody. We're going to talk about these oligarchs, these billionaires who just really making our lives miserable. We are up in five. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. By the time you hear this, we will be in day 30 of the government shutdown. So let's talk about what that means. This weekend, more than 40 million Americans are set to not receive any funding for their food. You do know that most people who get SNAP and WIC work every day. Yeah. But most people cannot make it from payday to Monday. Why is that? When Elon Musk is looking at $1 trillion bonus, a payout off of your money because much of his wealth is, well, it's funded by you and me. He gets government contracts. But I said, you know what? I want to know as we're looking at this government shutdown, just what role do the oligarchs play in all of this? They have the Democrats and the Republicans, they have us fighting with each other. The Republicans really have us attacking Democrats to Schumer shutdown. That's not what this is. Come on. The Republicans, and I am not a partisan, you know that. But let's say the oligarchs are willing to starve you out and stop you from having health care so they can get what they want. At least that's my read on it. But I said, you know what? There's a more brilliant man than I. I get my emails from inequality.org. If you want to know what the oligarchs are doing, you need to go there. Sign up for the newsletter. Indeed, he's from the Institute for Policy Studies. He's a senior fellow there, but he's got a new book that I cannot wait to get. Burned by Billionaires: How Concentrated Wealth and Power Are Ruining Our Lives and Planet. Chuck Collins, as I'm looking at this shutdown, and you're seeing people on TikTok and in social media who are saying, look, I'm not going to starve. It's very clear somebody's got some money somewhere. It's just the people who are working hard every day and those who want to work hard every day, they're not getting it. So talk to me. Burned by billionaires. Are we being burned by billionaires? Is this what are the oligarchs driving, helping, or at least helping to drive this crisis in which we find ourselves? Chuck Collins, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Santita. And yeah, I think we're living in a time. This is what an oligarchy looks like when there's a government shutdown. The oligarchs love gridlock. They love it when people can't get together and solve problems and regulate corporations. They're happy to see the situation. They're happy to see us fighting amongst ourselves because we're not really looking at what's driving all the disruptions in our life, which is this incredible extreme concentration of wealth and power. So yeah, they're happy to see, lawmakers not able to pass tax laws, oversee the government. They're happy to see this run as long as possible.
What are we watching exactly? When you have this book that is coming out, Burned by Billionaires, and even not even back in 2016 when Bernie Sanders and then Citizen Trump were running in open primaries, people toggled between Bernie and Trump. They just wanted someone, or no, they didn't just, they wanted someone who was going to go to Washington and do what Trump did in the primaries. He took everybody out and said, you lied about Iraq. You've been lying. And people said, well, you know what? I think he's going to go and shake things up. Bernie, they were delivering a message they were coming from different sides, but they were delivering a message that resonated very deeply with people, Chuck Collins. But today you will find Trump supporters at Bernie Sanders rallies. I mean, if there's a rumor that he's going to be around, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 people show up because that's what we're looking for that. Help me to understand, you say burned by billionaires. How have we been burned by billionaires?
Well, there are so many ways. I mean, uh, the billionaires have robbed us of our voice and our vote, our by capturing our political system. They're inflaming the housing crisis by investing in, you know, short-term rentals and things that disrupt the housing market. Our health is more at jeopardy. The big billionaire-backed private equity funds are buying up hospitals and emergency rooms and trying to squeeze more money out of our healthcare budgets. Um, but your point about Trump and Senator Sanders is really important. That both of them make the argument, hey, I'm on the side of working people. I'm going to work for people like you who feel like they've been left behind, who are struggling paycheck to paycheck. But Trump's is a phony populism. He says, I'm going to help you. I'm going to eliminate the tax on tips. I'm going to throw a few crumbs your way. But meanwhile, I'm going to help my billionaire friends get richer and richer and capture the economy. Where I think, Sanders is basically authentic. He's saying, yeah, he's been saying it for 40 years. He's been consistent from when he was mayor to congressman to senator. He's working for the 60-70% of people who are, working paycheck to paycheck and have been left behind. And his program is, let's expand healthcare. We're the richest country in the world. And we have all these people who don't have the basics of healthcare, letting the food stand. Right now we're seeing, I think a lot of people who voted for the current president probably do get SNAP and food assistance.
Oh, yeah.
It's about to go away. A lot of those folks are about to see the new costs of Medicaid premiums that are about to go up in a lot of states. They just published those rates today. People are going to be shocked to see how much more they're going to have to pay for healthcare. That's not helping working people. That's not helping the people who elected him. So we need to be able to tell between the phony populists and the real folks who are really going to fight for working people and people who've been left out.
Well, we've got billionaires, but now we've had trillionaires. We just don't see them, right? The Rothschilds, the royal family of England. I mean, let's keep it 100. They are worth trillions of dollars. The royal family of England. I think I was reading a book by an Irish Republican who owns the world. They're the only private citizens who actually own whole countries. It's amazing, Chuck Collins. Help us to understand this moment, because we keep looking at one person, Trump. And you've been making the case that it goes beyond a person. It's a system, and it is a club that George Carlin talked about, and you ain't in it.
You ain't in it. That's right. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that's happened in our lifetime in the last 40 years is we're just seeing this extreme updraft of wealth, not just to the billionaires. I think the power line, I would say, is at about $30-40 million. People who are in the top 1/10 of 1%. You have $30 million, you're doing great. Your children are fine. You've got multiple houses. You're living the frictionless life, as they say. But when you start to get north of 40 million, you're not just buying mansions and jets, you're buying senators and media outlets. You're rigging the rules of the economy to benefit yourself. That's the class. That's, people talk about the billionaire class, but I think it's that top 1/10 of 1%. And that's where the power lies. And that's, and they have captured a huge share of wealth. I mean, just one statistic, I won't overload you, but, in 2017, the first Trump tax cut, all U.S. billionaires, or about 830 of them, combined wealth $3 trillion. And of course, that's the wealth we know about. That's the wealth that isn't hidden, but still $3 trillion. Yesterday I looked, 916 billionaires worth $8 trillion.
So give us that breakdown one more time.
So basically between 2017, when the first Trump tax cut, prior to the pandemic, all the U.S. billionaires had $3 trillion combined, now $8 trillion combined. So a $5 trillion gain in wealth. Where did that come from? Real wages have continued to be stagnant. Working people are still not getting the gains from their productivity of their work. So that's the story of our times. We're seeing a very rapid updraft of wealth, not to the 1%, but the top 1/10 of 1%.
Is this a gilded age?
It's a
Would you call
second
it?
Gilded Age. It's like 120 years ago, the last Gilded Age was the big robber baron fortunes, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, and the great trusts of corporations that controlled the meat and forestry and timber and steel. We're
Mm.
back there now. It's the people who control the tech apps that everybody uses, the gatekeepers on the social media platforms. We're seeing more and more billionaires basically buying up media to even sort of warp the conversations and how we understand the world.
But you know what's a fascinating to me is that they've become among the wealthiest people in the world off of products that were developed by the government, by the people. Um, the mRNA vaccine that was developed by inside of the government. How is it that the internet, all of these things? How is it that we have all of these entities that are developed by the people, or certainly with the people's money, and then they're shifted to private persons, and they become extremely wealthy, and then they control the policy. They control what you say. Then they burn us.
Yeah.
I mean, you Amazon is about to fire 14,000 people, and maybe double that. How is it that you make all of this money, but you need customers, but you don't need to hire them? Help me to understand that.
Well, you're making a really important point. At the source of most of the great fortunes are public investments and things that we do together to create knowledge and infrastructure, like the internet, like the fertile ground we create for wealth creation, infrastructure, um, knowledge, education, public investments in energy. We create that, and you have all the billionaires saying, "Oh, we did it alone. We just showed up and we created a better mousetrap, and you all want to buy it." Um, we need to kind of look through the fog and say, "Oh yeah, we all created this together." That's the justification for taxing great wealth. Is these are folks who've disproportionately benefited from all the public investments that we make together. So if somebody says, "Oh yeah, I created all this wealth myself," let's ask those questions. Where did it come from? Were you born in a state of nature, raised by wolves, and not? Did you go to school? Did you have a teacher? Did you have a librarian? Did you have any kind of infrastructure that you built your business on? That's a really important point to keep remembering when people talk about these great theories of wealth creation.
Well, what have you been finding? I mean, give us some of these statistics. I mean, because your data, because I read your newsletters faithfully, and the reports that upon which your newsletters are based, and they're staggering. It's staggering how so few people have acquired so much, and such and maybe we saw it with Reagan, because we had this president who was shaped by the oligarchs. They created him. They pulled him right off of a studio lot, right? Then they put him on TV, and they made him a spokesman, and they gave him and his wife this fabulous house that was state of the art. They put him on the Rotary circuit so he could talk, and that's almost like become the template now for all of the big politicians that we have seen, with very few exceptions, over the past 60, 70 years. But then he walked in and he fired the people. He fired a whole class of workers, Chuck. Who does that? I mean, has anyone forgotten what it was like? And many of you who are listening right now, you don't remember what it was like to have someone fire all of the air traffic controllers in the United States. Chuck, I don't think we ever got over that. I don't think we ever
No,
recovered.
no, that was a real and symbolic turning point when government cracked down on workers who were simply trying to organize to have a decent wage. Um, and I think you're right. We basically are seeing uh, candidates that stand for office that have been sort of pre-selected by the oligarch class.
Yeah.
They win the wealth primary. They're so-called viable candidates because they've got big money behind them. It's be very hard to organize a rainbow coalition today in a society where so much of our voice and vote has been taken away from us. We don't have now our ability to the ordinary person's ability to influence what happens in Congress is practically zero, according to political scientists. Only if you're kind of like weighing in on an issue that the billionaires also support can you see something happen. And the real power is to block things that we want. Uh,
What do you mean?
well, universal health care is incredibly popular right now. People think the whole idea that uh, 30 million people lack access to health care.
Yeah.
We believe there's wide support for making sure the rich pay their fair share of taxes, but you're not going to see that happen. We came, 2021, Joe Biden put forward Build Back Better, a $3.5 trillion investment paid entirely by multimillionaires and billionaires, their taxes. It was going to create a modern childcare system. It was going to lift millions of people out of poverty, millions of children out of poverty. It was going to create the kind of green infrastructure that our communities need to face climate disruption. It was going to make a huge difference in people's lives. And it came within 2 votes in the U.S. Senate from passing. And the oligarchs figured out we just need to buy off Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, 2 Democrats. They're set for life, by the way. They retired. They got what they wanted. They got paid off to block that legislation, and we came very close to passing, and that's where the power of the oligarchs really comes in, is when they want to block something from happening.
But when you look at corporate media, the centrist, you have Rahm Emanuel, who many people in Chicago, my goodness, covering up the murder of this child, Laquan McDonald. Come on, I'm sorry, it was a bridge too far. But you see how they're trying to rehabilitate him. And he's talking about, Democrats are talking about the pronouns, and I'm talking about, basically educating the kids. This is someone, Chuck, who said of black and brown children, 25% of them are not going to make it anyway. He said this to, may she rest in peace, Karen Lewis, who was head of the Chicago Teachers Union. She mentored our now Mayor Brandon Johnson. And he just said it dismissively. And she was so shocked. And she was devastated. She said, how can you be the mayor of my town and you write off 25% of my kids? Are you kidding? And he's held up. They made him mayor. They made him the ambassador to Japan. And no one asked him a question about holding back a murder investigation on a child. Child. And then you allow him to make centrism. This is what Americans want. We don't have centrist problems, Chuck.
No, you can see this battle for the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. Are you going to be the party of the donor class, of the wealthy donors, of which there are many in the Democratic Party? That's kind of how we've, I think, lost our way, is you've had candidates and politicians who basically listen more to those donors than they do to the fundamental base. A lot of people feel like we're in this dilemma because people feel the Democrats walked away from working people and low-income people and people of color and didn't really address the fundamental challenges. And, that's why we're in this pickle, because people felt like they had no home, they had nowhere to go. And so they drifted to Trump. I predict a lot of those people are going to feel, they already are feeling, betrayed by Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I live in a rural area where all these farmers who voted for Trump are like, I bought this package, Trump. I'd like to return it now, Tariffs are killing me, and ICE is taking my farm workers away, and the chaos of the marketplace and all this, it's just devastating to local economies. People are going to flood to whoever shows up after Trump. There's going to be another pendulum swing, and the question is, will the Democrats stand for working people in that moment? Will they, or will they just kind of run the same lame agenda and not make a difference in people's lives? That's the fight of the next 2 years.
Well, Chuck, do you think that people because it seems like young people are going to go past the Democrats. Look at what they've done with Mamdani in New York, Omar Fateh in Minneapolis, St. Paul. No one talks about this young man, this state senator, who Minneapolis is a state where college attendance has risen because
Yeah.
of work that he's done. No one talks about him, and now you've got the sitting mayor who he defeated in their primary system, which is, basically a caucus. And no one is talking about him. But to me, when I see him and when I see Mamdani and I'm seeing Brandon Johnson, people are going past the parties, I think. Oh, help me to understand what we're seeing. Because I think that's why before I even knew when your book was coming out, I had to reach out to you because I said, no one is talking about these, uh, the people who were standing with President Trump when he was being sworn in. I've never seen that many publicly wealthy people at an
Yeah.
inauguration,
Yeah.
ever.
No, we've never had such a billionaire-friendly administration. We've never had a cabinet with so many billionaires in it. But I think you're right, Santita. People under 30, they're not buying it. They're not buying the Democratic Party elitism. They're working hard at the grassroots level for candidates who are going to fight for them. I think we're going to see a whole new generation of candidates stepping forward who say, I'm going to work for an economy that works for everybody. I'm going to work to get small donors to support me. I don't care about the big donors. And they're not going to be endorsed by the wealth primary. That's why the mayor of Minneapolis is not, he doesn't kowtow to the super wealthy. But we're going to see a whole generation of people standing up, and I think it's going to change the politics of the country in a good way.
Well, but as you've written this book, number one, when does the book come out?
It's out this week, and sending you a copy, and we can invite me back, and we could talk more about it. But yeah, people are really excited about this argument, and I did a little column called "The 10 Ways You're Being Burned by Billionaires," and
Give me a couple of them because I'm not sharp enough to add to them. But oh boy,
no, they're well. Here's I think we know about politics. We know that we've kind of lost our voice and our vote. How about your health, though? Your health is being hijacked by these big billionaire-backed private equity funds. They're buying up emergency rooms, hospitals, ambulance companies. They're buying up the whole health industry. They see it as a sixth of the economy, ripe for robbing, ripe for looting and pillage. Same with the housing market. We're seeing, in Minneapolis, there are all these single-family homes that these big private equity companies are buying up single-family homes, kicking people out and renting them, long-term rentals.
Was that what Blackstone? Is it?
Blackstone is one of them, and it's a couple of others. I did an article about that in Minneapolis neighborhoods. You go around some blocks, half the units are owned by corporate owners. The housing, people who live in mobile home parks. And I worked in Minnesota and other regions with tenants trying to buy their mobile home parks. But the billionaire private investors love mobile home parks. One of them says, "Oh, I love buying mobile home parks. It's like owning the Waffle House and having your customers chained to the booths because they can't go anywhere." And that's, if you live in a mobile home park, you can't move your home. If somebody doubles your rent, you just are forced to pay it. That's the sort of way. That's the captive market that the billionaires like to move into. Pets. I don't know about you, but there's a lot of people I know who their animals are members of their family. They're willing to go into debt to care for them. They're willing to spend money, and these big investors like the Mars family, who make the candy bars, they also are buying up veterinary clinics, dog walking services, apps that help you connect to dog walkers and dog owners, pet food. They see pet as a whole place to grab more money and squeeze consumers even more because we love our animals. So the environment's being trashed by the billionaires. They're the super emitters. They're the ones flying the private jets and using their yachts and multiple houses. You know,
when
they
when
like to,
when
they
they
like
go to
to
the climate summits.
that's right. They like to lecture us on our behavior. Oh, you need to, not eat hamburgers, and you know, you need to ride your bike and not drive your car. And then they're jetting across town for lunch. So it's, so yeah, there's, and your taxes. The billionaires are pretty much opting out of paying their fair share of taxes,
Mhm.
hiding their money, decimating the part of the IRS that used to be able to track down the tax dodgers and shell games of the wealthy. So we're picking up the bills.
But aren't they
Ordinary.
just? But excuse me. I mean, aren't they decimating? Speaking of that, aren't they decimating the government? It seems like they're unplugging everything, Chuck.
Well, and that's part of it. The Doge is the worst example, but they've been attacking the public workforce, trying to privatize the postal service. All those things are very much attacks on government, as because government is the only thing standing in the way between ordinary people and the billionaire hijacking of our society and our economy. If we can't, if we don't have a government that can stand up to these abuses, and so that's, yeah, the Trump agenda is dismantle the state, dismantle the government, make it weak, so the private sector and the billionaires can just run over the rest of us. Their vision is a world with very minimal government, very limited social safety net, and we're all, it's feudalism basically. We're all going to bow to the Lord. You know, the monarchs are going to rule over us. That's the vision of that's where they want to take us.
But isn't that? Do you think that's where we are now?
We're on the verge. We still have room to move. We still have some independent media. We have people like you who can have a radio show and speak out. We still have local governments and some states where there's still democratic norms. But I would say if we just keep going on this path, on this oligarchy autopilot, 10 years, 20 years from now, it's going to be a very different looking society.
What would it look like?
Well, there's a really scary science fiction movie called Elysium,
Mm.
where the rich have withdrawn to a satellite and they have these med bays. By the way, when Trump talks about med beds, he had this fantasy
Mhm.
that we're all going to, that comes from the science fiction movie called Elysium. Anyway, it's pretty dystopian, but basically Earth is this degraded, overpopulated hellhole,
Yeah.
and the rich have withdrawn to their own little enclaves and satellites, and their life expectancies, 150 years, and life on Earth is short and brutish. And that's kind of how this plays out. And by the way, they have, robots kind of control the humans, and AI activated, machines kind of rule over the most of the humans, and the rich are off enjoying their high quality of life. Well, we're kind of like that. The wealthy are withdrawing to these bubble enclaves, but the reality is there's no planet B. There's, as much as they Musk and Bezos and all these people love talking about space, there's not a habitable space colony viable anytime in the next couple decades. So they're stuck on Earth with the rest of us.
You
Uh,
know, but let me ask you this because Jeff Bezos has already said that he envisions that going to Earth will one day be like visiting Disneyland. I said, so you all are leaving? Is this is this what you're telling me? Oh my gosh! I mean, and with Elon Musk wanting to make us humanoids, and it's all crazy. Help me before you go, because I am going to have you back because I want you to talk about this book because we have been burned. Everybody's talking about it, even if the corporate media don't want to discuss it. it, this is it. I mean, that's why Luigi Mangione. Nobody would ever say that it's right to murder someone, although his escape route, quite honestly, befuddled me. I lived in New York for a long time. You can't get from the Hilton to the 70s on the West Side in 5 minutes. I'm sorry. And that just didn't work for me. And I'm not paranoid. Well, I am a little, but um, when when Mr. Thompson was first killed, I said somebody's angry about healthcare. I mean, and it was immediate. Everybody knew, right? I'm not saying it's right, but now you see TikToks with people who are saying, I'm going to eat So I'm going to load up my basket and I'm going to walk out the store. That's what I'm doing. But, correctional officer for the lockdown has a family. And education has always been the way up in America. That's been like one of the great equalizers, along with the vote. University of Chicago undergraduate is $100,000 a year. Who can afford that, right? So, and he's talking about college affordability. It's all but a dream now. And the pathway to the middle class, a pathway out of poverty is the portal is narrowing for people, Chuck.
Yeah.
What do you, I mean? Is that is that kind of like the thrust of your book, Burned by Billionaires?
Yes, and think about it. Student debt has become this profit extraction for private companies. It's not even student loans from government anymore. It's all private vendors. In a nutshell, I think the solution is taxing wealth and investing in things that matter to people. And that's how the system used to work in the 50s and 60s and 70s. There was a very steeply progressive tax system. The ultra wealthy paid more their fair share taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They paid inheritance taxes, which are now a joke. And money was invested in debt-free higher education and job training, first-time home buyer loans, low interest loans, access to quality infrastructure and transportation. We know the formula, how to get back. We know how to reverse this, but we just need that political will, and we need to come together and organize to make it shift back.
As we are looking at this government shutdown, before I bring on Dr. David Gibbs from the University of Arizona, whose book, you all have these books that really have fascinated me. His book is Revolt of the Rich, how the politics of the 1970s widened this American class divide. And it really, it's here. Help me to understand, what we are looking at with this government shutdown. Because I feel like hidden hands are in this, Chuck Collins.
Yeah. Well, I think we're.
And I say that, excuse me, because I don't know how Mike Johnson, who comes from one of the poorest states in the United States, can look at his constituents and say, you can't have any food.
Yeah. Well, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. These Republicans are hearing it from their base. The ones like Tom Tillis who've said, look, I'm going to resign so I can speak the truth. They're speaking the truth. Everybody else is so afraid of the Trump man, but their constituents are ultimately, they're going to have to answer to the voters. They know that, and they're running scared. They don't want to, so yeah, I think the impact of this shutdown is about to really ripple out. And same with the Medicaid issue. The reason the Democrats are holding the line is they want to include, the resources. They want to have a plan to keep people on health care. And when people start to see the cost of what their premiums are going to be going into the next year, there's going to be open rebellion. And the Republicans are running scared. So yeah, let's sit back and watch them squirm for a couple of days, see what happens. Well, maybe they'll have to be accountable to their voters, or are they going to just do what Trump wants again?
Well, you know what? I will say this as I bring on Dr. Gibbs, and because I don't know if you all know each other, but you should. My brothers I have another brother in Congress right now, and Jonathan said, he's got a lot of friends on the other side of the aisle, because we make friends with everybody, and I'm glad of that.
Yeah,
he said the sad thing is, because you get to know human beings, and when you talk, you might find some areas of agreement, and you do. And he said, you got to understand that Proud Boys are roaming the halls here, and they're escorted to the gallery while members of Congress are voting. This is something the corporate media, they do not report that. And I have been up there, visited him, and you know a Proud Boy. You know when people are looking at you, who make you feel a little hesitant, not frightened, but you're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on up here. That's the environment that they have. Yeah. So he said, even when a lot of his colleagues want to vote this way, they vote this way. because they feel physically threatened in the chamber.
Hmm.
Which is, this is insane. In the meantime, 1 in 4 children need food stamps. 42 million. And I said, wait a minute, that's 42 million people who have that card that's loaded up. You're not talking about their dependents. So multiply that 2, 3, 4, 5 times. You're pulling $9 billion out of the economy, Chuck. I mean, they're unplugging the economy.
Amen. Amen.
Oh, so what would you like for us to know? Because I want everyone to get your book, Burned by Billionaires. I think you all have 2 major bestsellers on your hands because
Well,
everybody's upset. I am.
well, I look forward to reading Mr. Gibbs' book as well, and coming back and chatting some more. But yeah, as you say, check out inequality.org. Check out our weekly newsletter that kind of lifts up, what it is we can do together and the heroes on the front lines and the latest data. And check out Burned by Billionaires. It's out this month. And I look forward to coming back and chatting with you some more.
Oh, don't worry about it because we're going to talk about it because guess what? Next week, I'm hoping that the government shutdown will be over, but I don't think it's going to be. These people are digging in their heels and it's unsettling. So may God bless you. You'll hear from me in a matter of days.
Likewise.
Well, sending you much love. Chuck Collins, Burned by Billionaires. Get the book, everybody. Get the book. And get Dr. David Gibbs' book. Of course, The Revolt of the Rich. Wow, look at us. 30 days into the government shutdown. And no one in corporate media are talking about, to me, the hidden hand here, which are the oligarchs. David Gibbs. I think that they've got something in here. You got to help me with this because right now we're looking at starvation in America. David Gibbs. Is that what the revolt of the rich? When you look at the politics of the 1970s, it's like they were reacting to all of the progress in the post World War II era, right?
That's right. That was the whole project. That was the whole.
Yeah. So help us to understand what we're looking at right now. Because I feel like the rich, they're so forward with this, David Gibbs.
Yeah. Well, there's I think there's the immediate effect and there's the historical effect. The immediate effect is that you're going to see, I assume, massive cutting of government programs permanently, using the shutdown as a pretext to achieve that. That a lot of the government employees, basically, who are on furlough, I think the objective is not to rehire many of them, and thus basically to pare down the federal government through simply eliminating whole categories of employment, and thereby eliminating or scaling back programs. I assume that's the agenda. The whole agenda.
Why do you assume that?
Well, since the 1970s, the program was now called neoliberalism, which is you're reducing social programs, redistributing wealth upwards, getting rid of programs that were redistributive in particular, essentially repealing what you might call the extended New Deal, which was mostly done, although not completely. And there's still federal programs that serve lower income groups that promote education, that promote healthcare. And I think that the idea of neoliberalism is to get rid of as many of these programs as quickly as possible, and thereby achieve both an ideological objective of getting a free market economy, although they compromise on free market because they always have bailouts whenever they need bailouts, but they call a free market economy. There's an ideological objective, and also create the basis for permanently reducing taxes, especially on the wealthy. And so that's been a long-term program. One of the techniques they've used is crises. Naomi Klein had written a whole book on this, on how basically neoliberalism was implemented by waiting for crises to occur. And when there's a crisis, you can implement draconian cuts in government programs. That's happened before, and I suspect the government shutdown will be the latest crisis that will be used in that way. Let me say, as a general point, I think the billionaire class has always been very uncomfortable with Donald Trump for the most part. Most of them backed Kamala Harris. The Democrats aren't that much better, is the truth. But I think
I need you to say that one more time,
right.
because we have focused on Trump and not
I agree.
system.
Right.
So what did you just say?
Well, I'll make a general point there as well, which is the specific point. I'll just repeat what I said, is that the billionaire class actually did not back Trump with that much enthusiasm. More billionaire money went to Kamala Harris, and I think at this point in the election, the billionaire class was more comfortable with the Democrats because Trump is considered such a wild card. He's considered so out of control. The billionaire class prefers a more establishment figure like Harris or previously Biden. I think that really is the case. And the truth is the Democrats are not quite as much on board with neoliberalism as the Republicans, but almost as much so. And so I think this has very much been a bipartisan project since the 1970s. People like to present these things in terms of the Republicans want to basically hurt the poor, and the Democrats want to protect the poor. It's not that simple. Both parties have been on board with dismantling the New Deal, and both parties have been doing. Clinton, Obama, they were very much on board with this. I mean, Obama said, in the 1950s, I would have been an Eisenhower Republican. I would have been a Republican. The Republicans like to call him a socialist, but he was probably well to the right of Eisenhower in reality, as was Clinton. And so I think that it's important to emphasize. I'm not that comfortable with people putting so much emphasis upon Trump all the time, just because I see Trump as a manifestation of a rotted, dysfunctional political system, for which both parties bear a lot of the blame. I mean, he's a terrible president. I'll say that right out. But I think he's more of a symptom of a deeper sickness in American politics rather than the sickness itself. But as far as the shutdown goes, what we're seeing is a continuation of a project that had been going on for 50 years, which is to use crises as a pretext to implement cuts in social programs and to pare down the whole governmental structure associated with governmental programs. And so I suspect that'll be the long-term legacy of the shutdown, is a further implementation of that long-term project.
So when we're looking at, you sound like, our beloved Dwight McKee, who's called so much of what we are. Oh,
I'm very sorry he's not with us today. He would have been great on this topic.
Oh, my goodness. Well, he loved being with you because he felt that you had such clarity.
Yeah.
Because both of you, you are a scientist. And a lot of my background in college was in chemistry. Look, if you touch the beaker, you messed up the experiment, everybody. Let me just put it like that. You added moisture, oils to it. You had to start all over again. The answer yields what it yields. I do math. It is what it is. 1 + 1 is going to be 2. That's it.
Yep.
1 squared is going to be 1. I mean, look, stop it. Really. So you can't be tied. You have to be tied to the process. And and the answer is going to, I had a calculus teacher, Dr. Sasha Ray. He used to drive us crazy. He drove us crazy, Dr. Gibbs, because he would write out these definitions, and if you missed a comma or a semicolon or a word, you got marked. Boom. He said, no, if you take out a word, if you misplace the comma, the semicolon, the colon, you change the definition. And so we would have to go get these Fortran papers this is 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And he had a cart, because that's how you handed your homework to him.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because you had to literally go, he wanted to see every step you took.
Yeah.
Because he could catch the flaw in your thinking. And I'm bringing all of that up to you to say that you've been very, very deliberate in looking at the steps that we're taking. By saying, wait a minute, let's go back. This is not just the Republicans or the Democrats. It's a bipartisan betrayal.
That's right.
Let's look at the fact that they're both on board, which is why Mamdani and Omar Fateh and these young kids are democratic socialists. they'll ride the Democratic horse, but they're not fully on board with all of this because they see through this. And I'm wondering, as we are looking at the unplugging, not just of the government, but of the society, I think, as a whole. I mean, when you take $9 billion out immediately, come on, Dr. Gibbs, because that's what happens when you end SNAP and you say you're not going to touch the contingency. And 42 million people and their dependents will have nothing on their cards this weekend.
I am wondering how this will affect economic stability, basically, as you noted. Just the reduction of government spending on that scale can have some impact, basically, on the overall functioning of the economy. There's so much uncertainty right now, including with Trump's tariffs, with two major wars in the world. Then you have the government shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of intangibles, and so where this is going to lead economically as well as politically, nobody knows. And I doubt the outcome in the long term is going to be good. Let's put it that way.
Well, hazard a guess as an historian. First of all, is there any precedent that you can think of where you see the kind of dismantling, not just of government, but of an economy?
Well, sure. I mean, I think this has been an ongoing process since the 70s. I noted late 70s when it really got going. The last 2 years of the Carter presidency, I'd say, is when it really began in earnest. I think, let me say again, I've mentioned before, but I am very impressed with Carter's post-presidency, and I think he genuinely was a well-intended figure. And there's that. On the other hand, it is a fact that the neoliberal agenda really began not under Reagan, it began under Carter. Carefully. In a sense, Reagan gets too much credit or too much notoriety, depending on how you want to look at it, because really it began under Carter.
How so?
Deregulation began under Carter. The assault against labor unions openly began under Carter. Some of his top appointments, Alfred Kahn, who was in charge of deregulation, he later said in an interview, it's almost a direct quote, "What I really wanted to do was to make the auto workers worse off. I wanted to make the truckers worse off." That's what he said. And he was Carter's deregulation advisor. And that's
do we forget that he was a conservative Southern governor? I mean, he's someone who I loved, right?
Well, the South, one of the things about the South, I have to say there's always the race issue, but Carter, as we know, actually, he was pretty good on the race issue.
He was. But I mean, he was, a centrist, right?
On economics.
Yeah, economically.
He was more of a conservative. He called him, in private, he called himself a conservative. Bear in mind, Georgia is a right-to-work state. They don't really have strong unions in Georgia. As one of the reasons, in fact, I'm convinced of this, one of the reasons you had Jim Crow was basically to block unionization and block the populist movement. It was very effective in doing that because you split the working class.
Okay.
That's what it did. And as a result of that, the South was virtually a union-free zone. It always had been. And the race issue was very effective in doing that, including in Georgia. So when Carter was governor of Georgia, he had no conception of labor unions as a force to be reckoned with. And he regarded them as a nuisance. And so I think that's the mindset he had when he became president. The results were not good, in my view. And also he appointed to the Federal Reserve Paul Volcker, who was an admirer of Milton Friedman. He implemented essentially a monetary policy very much based on Milton Friedman's theories. And it was devastating to the working classes in this country. And so I think really the big redistribution upwards, that really did begin in the last 2 years of the Carter presidency. I think Carter genuinely regretted it. And in 2016, he said that he'd voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary because he was very concerned about the concentration of wealth in the country and what it was doing to the social fabric of the country.
Amy and Billy endorsed Reverend in 1988, and
I didn't know that. I did.
And Amy traveled speaking. Oh yeah, and and Billy Carter was nobody's, progressive, but he was an economic populist.
Billy Carter, that's interesting.
Yeah, he was, and he was. Look, my father's a Southerner, so Southerners can speak to each other very, very plainly. Yeah. And he just said, look, I like what I like. I don't like what I don't like. And he was, let's just put it this way, he was very plain spoken. He said, but I like you.
That's
I
interesting.
think, I think you are making good sense, Jesse.
Hmm.
Jesse, wherever you make some good sense, you make some good sense. And there was that. And you can see the Carters applauding wildly because we were, of course, in Atlanta at the 1988 convention when Reverend was speaking. You know, they were cheering him
Right.
as he spoke. Um, and so there is, you see, and there is a space, I think, um, for this economic populist message. And not just that, the politics, Dr. Gibbs.
I agree. I think that that's the person who I think revived that tradition, not completely successfully, was of course Bernie Sanders, who was very much a populist.
Yeah.
He spoke a populist language, and he had a populist platform, and he got a lot of the votes of people who later voted for Donald Trump. And I always thought one of the weaknesses of the Democratic of the left until now, maybe Mamdani will be at turn a page on this, but has been that they've not been able to sustain that kind of support. And I think on a lot of issues like trans rights and that kind of thing,
Mhm.
The left has kind of disavowed people who might be somewhat lean sort of socially conservative on sort of sexual issues, sexuality issues,
Mhm.
but were kind of left on economic issues. I personally think much greater effort to be made to bring these people around and bring these people into kind of a progressive movement. I mean, if we can't bring these people into the progressive movement, there's really no hope, is my view. You can't get a majority. I mean, that's something I said here before. What you need is a majority. Okay, this idea that it's half vote this way, half vote that way. You can't get anything done that way. You need more than 50%, and you can't do that unless you're basically willing to have some tolerance for people.
Look
And
at Marjorie Taylor Greene. I agree with her on Gaza. I agree with her on healthcare. Can
yep,
you not just relax a minute, come together with her? I mean, she and Johnny, my brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, they're great friends.
interesting.
And she, yeah, because well, first of all, he gets along with people, and when you're up on the hill, she's one of the friendliest people up there. Yeah, everybody, I've said it. When you're walking down the hall,
Interesting.
everybody's wearing their pins, so you know who the congresspersons are, and it's a hierarchical place.
Hmm.
So members talk to members,
Yeah.
okay, and chiefs of staff talk to chiefs of staff, and everybody else is just there.
Hmm.
When you see her, she's like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Hmm.
That's just. And my thing was, and I've talked to some of my progressive friends, and I said, "Well, I like her on healthcare, on Gaza.
Yep.
There's some things that she has, and I like the fact that she's listening to her district.
Hmm.
So I can't say that, oh, she's just a racist. I said, you know what? Racism is baked in the cake, y'all. Let it go. I don't think she means harm, harm, harm. And if you called her out on it, she would get puddly eyed and, well, what do you mean? Look, let's just work with her and work with everybody on where you can work with them, Dr. Gibbs. Because, like you said, you're not going to get this split. People disagree on this, that, and the other. I'm not going to argue with you about trans rights.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with you about religion. I'm not going to argue with you about your interpretations of whatever. If we can come together on this, that, and a third, then I am good. Because
And
right
needs
now,
space for it.
help me to understand. I have a couple more minutes here for you. Just help me to understand where you see us, or how where we're going, or where.
Well, I mean, I would like to say that I can see some clear resolution to this. The problem is the opposition to Trump. The Democrats, as I noted, are very weak in many different ways, and they're not popular. And that's an important point to emphasize. Trump isn't popular, but the Democrats, believe it or not, are even less popular. The polls are clear on that. The Democrats are very unpopular as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And there really has to be, what the Democrats are not willing to do is basically say, what did we do wrong, and acknowledge fault. They've never done that. You should have had heads roll after 2016. If the Democrats lost the election in 2016, heads should have rolled. There should have been a general, honest, open discussion as to what they did wrong. That never happened. It's been almost 10 years now. And there's been an open discussion of what did they do wrong. There really is a kind of an insistence they did nothing wrong, and they've lost, they've lost election after election to this clown, this joke, and he is a clown and he is a joke. And well, what do you say about the Democrats? They couldn't defeat a clown and a joke.
I mean, literally, the 2016 the debates, I tuned in to get a chuckle. I said, who is he going to take out this week? And he does not care. I mean, he says anything. And this really.
Well, one of the things I think that people do like about Trump is he's authentic. In other words, there's nothing affected about his speech. Gavin Newsom, sometimes when he speaks before different groups, he tries to affect a working class accent. Glenn Greenwald is making fun of that, rightly so. I mean, I can't stand when people do that. I mean, nobody can. It's embarrassing. And the Democrats do that all the time.
It's condescending. Come on.
I'm sorry?
It's condescending.
It's very condescending. I agree. And, Trump never does that. Trump is who he is. And the public finds that a breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
And it does reflect the fact that the Democrats basically have a real problem. Well, first of all, of image, and image does count, and symbols do count. And but in addition, there's a tone. I've mentioned this before, of a kind of an elitism, very much emphasizing people with advanced degrees and high incomes. And it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that working class people are turned off by that. In addition to that, their policies have been pretty bad. They've contributed significantly to the problems we're having now. I do think that also the kind of militarization of the Democrats is no better than Trump, basically. I mean, okay, Trump is much more honest and sometimes sociopathic in the way he talks, but the Democratic policies haven't been any more peaceful than Trump's have been. And I think the public is very tired of what, some have rightly called forever wars. And so I think that, the Democrats, until they start addressing their failures over a period of time, their deep structural failures, I'm not sure what the alternative is. I mean, what I would like to see is a break apart of the party system and the rise of a serious third party, or something maybe to replace the two parties. That would be an ideal outcome. That's very hard to do in our current system. So whether that's possible or not, I can't really say. I suppose one of the things is that with the realignment of politics we've been seeing, it does feel like almost anything could happen. I mean, nobody would have imagined somebody like Trump could have been elected in 2016 or reelected in 2024, and here we are.
Here we are. Wait a minute. And they're talking about 2028.
What's that?
They're talking about 2028.
Well, 2028, I mean, if I had to bet, my bet would be on a President Vance. But on the other hand, it's 3 years from now, and that's an eternity. So, your guess is as good as mine. But at the moment, well, one of the things that has to be said is my guess would be that we'll have a major recession, possibly a very nasty recession in the next 3 years. I think that's more likely than not. If there's anything that really will hurt Trump with his base, it would be that. And we'll see how the public will respond to that. And if that will finally tank Trump in a way nothing has so far. And but it would be nice if you have basically a disastrous presidency as the Trump presidency is. You'd have a credible alternative in the Democratic Party, but you don't.
Dr. David Gibbs, The Revolt of the Rich. Look, I've given you 2 great books today that really explain why we are where we are. Burned by Billionaires and The Revolt of the Rich. Can it get any better than that? Really, I think when I look at the post-World War II era, culminating in the 60s, where so much happened so quickly, really. And you saw a pushback. I saw the Bakke decision in real time, right? And my parents said, they're going to push out affirmative action. They said that. I saw them fire a whole class of workers who voted for Trump. Who voted for Trump. That was Freudian. Who voted for Reagan. I saw him open his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where they killed Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney. You saw this push. You saw this push. The only Democrat who fought back was Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow. Everybody else just said, he's got it. And then every Democrat we got after that modeled themselves on Reagan. Read The Revolt of the Rich. It will really help you to understand where we are. You need to know where we are, everybody. And then, of course, Burned by Billionaires. Get both books. You need to understand where we are. You really do. Dr. David Gibbs, you are a gift. I am
Okay.
Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless. Dr. Gibbs, thank you so much.